Thanks, Reggie. There you go. Well, welcome everyone to our fortnightly Thursday Partner Solution Series. I'm joined today with the founder of ChangeGPS and accounting entrepreneur, Tim Munro.
Hi, everybody.
Director on Sapeppa with me, which I was just mentioning, and also a cameo from our amazing Lightyear director, Grant Abbott. Grant, as I was just talking about the Sapeppa course that we had, Grant did an amazing job, and Tim was joined us as well. Susan Bansgrove. It's definitely one of the best contented courses I've ever done, and I thought the delivery by Grant was just next level. What did you think about it, Tim?
I thought it was absolutely sensational. Look, the feedback that we got was just astounding. But me as an accountant and a follower and good friend of Grant's, for many years, he just hit it out of the park. So delighted to be working in Sapeppa with Grant and yourself, Michael, and everyone else. And what I really love about what we're doing and everyone that's here at ChangeGPS for years, I've said it's all about collaboration, not competition. And sometimes in the accounting industry, there is this competition, and accountants don't share ideas because Michael, you're my enemy because you're going to try and steal my clients. That's just the dumbest of all dumb things.
Clients. Yep.
There are so many clients out there.
Crazy.
My client, we're helping each other with clients. We're helping each other with ideas. I love catching up and chatting with Michael and chatting with other accountants. So what we need to do as a group of accountants is to share ideas. We're on the same team here. We're just doing a bit of work for a few different people. We're not going to rip clients off each other. There are too many. And you know what? I've actually got a few clients I'm going to send Michael's way because I think they can, he can sometimes maybe do something better than I could, and vice versa. He might send a few back up my way. So that's the sort of approach we need. What's best for our clients? How can we help each other to get some great information and help for them? So that's what I'm passionate about. Love doing what we're doing in Sapeppa with Grant and with Michael. And you know what? A lot of things we're talking about, we've got planned. Can't wait from ChangeGPS's point of view to deliver these in conjunction with Lightyear Docs over the next 12 months. Super excited.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, just taking a look back, because I got the tax bug, in my earlier career, and worked in tax in my life, and super. Let's face it, super's just a tax play. I mean, if there's no concessions for super, no one will put any money in, and you just have to witness New Zealand around that one. But what I've noticed, and you guys probably a little bit further, is that over the last 2 or 3 years, the Commissioner is really grinding down on professionals. You'll see, I was talking with Mick before, that the latest gnarly ruling that came out, which is legal guidance, and I'll be explaining that on a pop-up webinar next Tuesday. But with that, the investment strategy rules, the requirement to be, independent from an audit perspective, it's just getting harder and harder. And I just feel that SMSFs are going to be one of those hollow logs that the government is going to raid down the track, and it's going to make it a lot harder as we go on. I still think we're in a good position from a family super fund perspective, but the Sapeppa work that we do, as you would have all experienced who went through it last week, it's very refreshing for us, whether you're an accountant, financial planner, or a lawyer, is that you're not dealing with tax or accounting or licensing issues. You're dealing with real live human issues, and that's the next level for us all to get up, and that's really important because it also is quite refreshing for our own mind. Dealing with clients on that more personal level than just simply being a mouthpiece effectively for the Commissioner or the ASIC.
Yeah, and I just want to echo what Tim said. I really love the fact that we are becoming this community, and you really showed it through COVID and in relation to what you released out to the accounting industry, which was fantastic. But I mean, you and I were talking only this week, and you shared in relation to some team reviews and the way you do KPIs and tracking and stuff, which is fantastic. And I had a Zoom yesterday, actually, with someone who was on the SEPEPA course, a sole practitioner, and he was just asking me, you know, my thoughts on what he should be doing in relation to his practice and what role he should be bringing on, whether it was an administration or he needed a senior accountant. And we're talking about client success or support officers. And he's probably the need for that, and potential offshoring and a few other things. And it's and it's not about, okay, I'm not going to tell you what you should do or hold these secrets in. It's about helping each other. And as you said, there's so many clients out there, and it's important about what your target market and your space is, and really working that well. And obviously we've got, after the PEPA, got a big opportunity in the succession, asset protection, estate planning space, and this webinar goes on from that today. And Tim he gave me the wordings for it when we were actually on the call. We're talking about the asset protection journey, and this is a journey just not for the client, but also from your perspective, I guess, as the advisor, and the tools that we've got, and the process you go through in relation to dealing with the client, and also then the documentation, and also then obviously a review process and everything wrapped around that. So which is extremely important. So if I jump into that, and we were just briefly talking about this slide before I put together last night, but the asset protection journey really, and I'll let Tim and Grant jump in through this, but it fundamentally starts with that client meeting, and that client might be a new client that's coming to the office, or it might be an existing client, and how you deal with that. And then from that client meeting, as part of that client meeting, you build out that client strategy. And then and we'll discuss different ways how we do that, and how we engage, which is, engagement is obviously extremely important process, isn't it, Tim, in terms of how you then put that proposal and actually sign the clients up, and then moving on to the documentation and how you go through that process in relation to creation of the documentation, which we'll get Grant to show us, and in terms of actually, I guess, execution of that documentation, the process that you follow. And Tim showed us, which I've got a little dot point into the SEPEPA course, the great pack that he puts together and sends out to clients, which once again is a sharing. You shared it to the community, and you didn't say, okay, well, this is just, we're keeping this for Change Accountants. And it was great in terms of the way it's stapled and everything, and putting that gaffer tape across. And then moving on to the registration and protection process. Yeah, that's right. And we can use it for different purposes, and registration. So for the mortgages and PPSRs and things like that. And then I guess importantly, and we get a lot of, stuff on support, and in relation to how do you then, that's great and everything, this great strategy, but how do we account for it? And what sort of valuations do we have to do, and what level of the valuations do we have to do? And then the really important piece as well is that regular review process. And I know Tim's got a great app coming up in terms of, I guess, that first stage, the client strategy and documenting what assets and liabilities they have, but also that really fits into that review process as well, and ensuring that that's updated. And then when you're doing that process, and and you've also got, Tim, which I'm sure you'll show, I really love that meeting agenda process, especially in the end of financial year, where it's not just about going through the accounting and tax, but you actually move through and go, okay, have things changed? Is your bloodline protected? What do you need to do in relation to that? So I've got your great mate castle there, Grant, as well. Yeah,
I know, it's a nice one. It looks a bit Lego land, but
yeah, I did. I quite like the Lego look. So that's why I grabbed it.
So look, I think the key thing is, and look, everyone on this web event today, we know that you are all excited about doing this, and you want to make a difference for your clients, and you want to do something that is beyond just tax returns and tax work. And so the starting point, and I know I've spoken to our good friend Manish and Gideon and a whole lot of others here today many times over the past period of time about things that we can help our clients with that take natural use of our knowledge of their circumstances, but actually gives them value far in excess of just tax work and BASs and financial statements. When I talk to a client now, and I think think of your own personal situation. Start with your own family. What's going to make the biggest difference? Is it getting your tax returns in and getting your tax down a little bit, Or is it protecting your money if you're in a car crash and you've got teenage kids or kids, not even in their teens yet, with the knowledge that things will be as right as they possibly can be without their parents moving forward, and that money stays in the bloodline. All of your hard work, all of your legacy will set them up the best way they can. Now, to me, clients pay whatever it takes to get that. They might sometimes complain about the cost of a tax return, but not when you help them to understand it. So accountants, you need to think about this for you. Do it for you. Get your spouse, get your partner in, talk about what it means and how things that happen if you're not here. And none of us like to talk about being not here, whether you believe in God or not. We only live so many years on this planet. So need to get it, take advantage of happiness every day, but also planning for the future.
So I think part of it is, look, I agree. Do it for yourself first. I think that's absolutely.
And understand the power of it, Grant. Understand that how important it is. Yeah. Absolutely.
So if you think about, as I said, a lot of clients have made their money very well, but it can be lost, or you can be caught up in family confrontation or litigation at any point in time, and it's crucial. It's like anything. This is like, so Pepper didn't exist before. If you have a look at it, there's a group called STEPS, which is a global group, which is mainly lawyers. And then you have your family officers who, they offshoot to lawyers, and they charge hundreds of thousands of dollars for what we're doing. So what you're doing in terms of value add is absolutely crucial, but there's always going to be new stuff. For example, I'm doing an article for the SMSF magazine coming down the track. And that's part of this process is the article is going to be on an SMSF living will. If you think about it, and this is part of that innovation, is that if mum and dad, like if dad dies, mum's left, she's got dementia, it's very easy if the kids are also in the fund, if they want to preserve capital for their wherewithal when mum dies, they can easily flip her back from a pension to accumulation stage, put her in a very low-ranking nursing home. She's got dementia, won't make any difference, or we're going to have a high ranking. So what we can build in there's much the same as we've got the family allowance. This is going to be used for this, this, and this. Then there's a binding contract with the trustee of the fund to say, well, a certain amount must be paid out each year. There has to be healthcare of a certain standard. The nursing home that they go to, the aged care, has to be of a commensurate standard, so that it actually binds the trustees. And as I've said before, the beauty about the Corporations Act and also the SIS Act is they're both federal, so that if anyone breaches those governing rules, which is, for example, the living will or the SMSF will, effectively potentially can be incarceration or quite serious penalties and loss and damages. So that, and as we're going down the track, we're continuing to build new stuff. So you need to get on top of the existing stuff now. And as Tim said, build it for yourself. Get on top of that so you're confident. So when there's a release of a new product, your clients already know they're going to trust you, they're going to believe in what you're doing, and you're just going to keep on adding new services onto your existing clients, which, let's face it, I don't think anyone in this group really needs to go out and hawk for new clients. You've got plenty of clients in your database that you've just never talked about this sort of stuff.
So the way to get into doing that, maybe, Michael, can I share my screen? I can run through a couple of these docs.
100%.
Because what I'm going to talk about today is more the front end, getting into this, engaging clients, and then Michael, Grant will be talking about the documentation, and Michael will focus on registration, whole range of other things. You can see it's a combined approach here. So I'm going to do
Grant, can you allow Tim to share, or you might be able to anyhow?
I think
just done that. Yeah. Yep. Can you see that now?
Yeah, got that.
Fantastic. So the way I do it, everyone, is in ChangeGPS and resources. We've got this annual meeting agenda. Now, if you're using ChangeGPS Progress, which is like a summary of the year-end accounts and tax and everything, this agenda is automatically in there. But I'm going to focus on these 10 questions here. If all you did was have an agenda with these 10 questions here, and if you, as the partner or the senior manager in your accounting business, did this with all of your clients, I reckon you're going to grow your revenue easily by 20%. in that next year. And then, you know what? You need to revisit this every year, and there's always going to be updates. So this is brilliant. And there's a lot of psychology to these questions. Don't skip any of them, because they all land in the crescendo at the end about protecting your wealth and your bloodline. So just do it like this. So the way I do it, if Michael was a client of mine, and let's do a bit of a role play here. So Michael would come in, we've got our year-end financials done, we use Xero, get them all signed, but I like to have a catch up, whether it's a Teams meeting online, coffee meeting, a lunch. And so Michael, look, we've looked at last year's information. That's like looking in the rear view mirror of your car. I prefer to drive a car nice and fast, look out the front. So, so can I ask you some important questions about the next 12, 24 months? I need to understand what you're aiming at so I can help you best. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Of course. Yep. So I'll start, Michael, what's important to you in life? And then, I won't get to explain because of time, but Michael explain it. And then we go into how would you make this year a great year personally? Like, what would make it a great year personally? So we start with the personal stuff, and then we link it to the business stuff. What would you need to achieve in your business to achieve those personal goals? You see, so there's the links. If I go back a step, in the past, all of us online today, we've probably been told we need to buy this business software, we need to get clients on monthly fixed price agreements, we need to do monthly stuff. And that never works because you don't make it personal to your clients. No. Clients don't want to pay for fancy reports every month of their business. Clients want to have money to spend on a new car, on travel when they can, putting the kids through schools, on living life. That's what they want to spend money on. So don't focus on giving them reports. Focus on what a client wants in life and then how their business helps them achieve that. Now, this is where we come to play. Hey, Michael, how can we help you get there faster to help your business achieve your goals so you can achieve your personal goals? What information do you need from us to know you're on track? How can we best help you stay on track? And then this is pretty cool. What's the biggest thing getting in your way? So, Michael's too busy, got many things on. So, can we use technology? Can we use different things to help him? What do you need to say no to make this happen? And believe me, I'm having to say no to a lot of things so I can stay on track. And the last two are just so vital. What is your exit plan? Is it sales, succession planning, franchising, licensing? Point of having a business is to sell it, even though you don't want to sell it right now, at some time in the future. So
the problem is, Tim, is that everyone only seems to think about that when the event's actually happening, or they want to do the event. So rather than, they need to be thinking about it now.
You need to be thinking about it now. I'm thinking about exiting all of my businesses right now. I'm not going to, but I need to. And then the last one, this is the kicker. How important is it to you to protect your wealth in your family bloodline? Look, and everything that we're all on here today, we've been through SAPEPA, the accreditation, and everything that we're building in Lightyear Docs, GPS, to move this forward. That is the key, because you might have a client that you're charging 2, 5, 10 a year, and there's easily 5, 10, 20 in this, and you need to update this every time, like in every 12 months. Now, Laura, I'm not leaving. Don't worry, I'm staying in ChangeGPS. But you see what all of you, I challenge you, think about, prepare for your succession. You need to get the maximum wealth, the maximum valuation when you leave. So if you have this conversation, you will leave, I guarantee you, with the request, what do I do? What's the next step? Okay. So to do that, oops, that's the wrong doc. So what we've got in ChangeGPS is a couple of docs. We've got the system here, which I'll just go back to. An entire asset protection estate planning system. So now we're building an app to make it easier for you. But when you go through this system, all the things I'm talking about, asset protection, estate planning, both needed at the same time. This helps you to understand it. Use whatever legal provider you want, but obviously I 100% endorse Lightyear Docs. Disclosure, I'm an investor in it, and I would only put my money in something I truly believe in. So seriously, it's a great system. And marketing, what to do, we've got the emails, price guidelines, invoice descriptions, team member involvement, and the entire system. So that's for ChangeGPS members, everything in there. We've got the emails to offer your wills and estate planning to your clients. using our VPP method, and we go through the plan to help you and to do that. And then what we then do is we send out the data capture form. So Grant created one. I just added a few things to it and put it in GPS format, including at the very back to get the client's assets and liabilities, so we can start looking at things like the protect and other ways of helping. Okay. And then once we've got that back, we've got the letter of advice. So this is 25 pages. It goes through absolutely everything, and I'm upgrading that all the time. You can expand or contract it. This is what our app will do. The app won't be out for 12 months. So don't hassle us. Manish, I know you want it tomorrow, and all our other friends out there, but we're working on it. It's going to take 12 months. We've got a lot of things, but it's part of a bigger approach. And I went through this at the CPEP accreditation, but this just helps you to explain what you need to your clients. And yesterday, Manish, Okay, and then the prices at the end. So what we've got is, this is where we put the quote. We've gone through all the value of the advice, and this is the key thing here. While no one can give you a 100% guarantee about asset protection, the strategies we have recommended to you will maximise the probability that the net equity in your home, investment properties and other chosen assets of more than X million will be protected. We go through all the stuff we need to do: wills, powers of attorney, protector, leading member discretion trusts, mortgages, and all the prices, and you sign off. You give that to the client. I then email it through to the client, talk them through it, client signs off on it, and then I open up Lightyear Docs and start my fund.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So a couple of things on that one. What I like to do is in that initial meeting, and I've been using that quite a bit, is to actually go through the process of discussing about the family. So when a client comes in, most of you are going to know your clients anyway, but I tend to deal with clients who are like super fresh, that I haven't met before. I've got a bit of a basics. So the first thing I always go in is find out who I'm dealing with, and to get rapport with someone. So you can't really go and do deep dive questions unless you have rapport with them. And obviously if it's both mum and dad or spouses, you can do a deep dive into both of them. The big issue though is if we have a look at that process around the family, I always go in and obviously you guys are already going to know the mum and dad, but I always go down and drill down to the kids. So I'll find out, which really goes back to what Tim's saying. So I'll find out, one is go through each child, who they're married or who they're in a relationship with, how long they've been in a relationship, because then I know whether the Family Law Act applies. I'll then find out if they've got bloodline children or stepchildren. So then when I get round to that bloodline philosophy that Tim's talking about, is it important to protect from the family bloodline? You should actually be able to pull out of that and just say, look, you told me that, your son is with, a crazy girl, she's got stepchildren and all that. Then obviously if we set it up and we go through the wills philosophy, which is great, but that there's potential that, your estate could be held up for 2 to 3 years. If that girl gets in your son's ear and starts to, want to make a family provisions claim. Now that then starts to open up the whole scenario there. So the more you can drill down and find out their family, and then build that as a case study when you're feeding it back to them and showing them why they've, because no one, probably apart from a few of us, no one's family wealth is protected. So everyone who's got, first off, everyone who's got a house in their own name is exposed. But you'll also find by going down that next level, and I would encourage that when you are doing those quotes, and what we do is that don't only do the wills and testamentary trusts or family protection trusts or protectors for the first generation, you jump down to the second generation.
Yep.
No good having the top people protect it and then finding they both die, it goes down to the next generation and there's no protection there. Yeah. So, and generally as parents, they want to protect their children more than they want to protect themselves. Because, if they're older in life, they say, well, I'm going to die anyway, but, they want to make sure that it's there for their children.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've just got on there, which I touched on at the start, but new versus existing clients. So I couldn't agree more. There's so much value in your existing client base, isn't there, Tim? You can go through and back now, I've said, and review it and see where it's at. And we've obviously gone through the CPEPA course, and we've got these great communication tools we can use with ChangeGPS to go out and market to these clients and actually start these discussions. But equally, it's important in new client meetings. I know you do a similar process to me, Tim. Look, I don't start talking to people about their tax or compliance, and it's not really an area like we have to do it. But does it get me out of bed in the morning? No, it doesn't. I really enjoy this side of things. And I'll start with a new client, and I'll actually straight onto the whiteboard, and I'll have a look. Okay, where are you at now? What have you got? What's your structure? And then I'll start, for use of a better word, start picking holes in it, and then talk to them about the different types of structures you can use, and then go look and then start talking about this is the strategy we should do, in terms of whether it's successor directors or protectors or anything. And we'll base that out. And that then starts to build out, I guess, the strategy that we're going to build for that new client. Or even existing client, but new client, and how we put it into place. And it's so powerful. I mean, just talking about that, and they go, no one's ever talked to us about this. The amount of times I hear that, and this is such a relief. And I'm like, well, I want you to be able to wake up each morning and not have to worry about any of this stuff, and you can just concentrate on your business and growing yourself personally.
Look, as a challenge to everyone, stop spending money on marketing for the next 12 months. Forget your Google AdWords. Forget. Don't do anything on marketing. Just whoever is, the one or two best people talking to clients in your business, focus on upgrading your existing clients. Just work through your existing client base. You're going to make a truckload of money. Your clients are going to be so much happier. And you know what? Those clients will talk to other people, and you're going to have so many new clients in 12 months' time. It's insane. Plus, you're going to have to review your existing clients. And one of the things I'm going to do with Grant and with Michael, over the coming month or two, is actually put together a review questionnaire, a review process. And that's going to be the second part of the app. So that way, the app's going to give you the initial advice, and once a year, you're going to review them. And you charge $1,000 or $1,500 for that review meeting. And we'll have assets in there and list. We'll have all sorts of stuff. I've got an amazing idea in my mind. Yep. But we'll put the brilliance of Grant and Michael, overlay it all to make it easy for you all to do it. So stop spending money in marketing. Just meet with your clients. Use these agendas. Work through your existing clients over the next 12 months, and you will find, guaranteed, you'll get massive numbers of referrals, because clients talk. When they get this stuff done, they are so happy.
Yeah, and then that review process is so important. It's not just a set and forget mentality. We're improving strategies all the time. There's new documentation, but it's not just that. The client circumstances are constantly changing. So it's important that you do that for them. So client strategy, we talked about there. So you've got, structured diagrams. Blueprint's a great app within ChangeGPS. Works so seamlessly with XPM and everything. But that's really your starting point with the existing client base, is getting that structure diagram, meeting with them, going through that whiteboard session, reviewing. Tim's got the app coming out, but having that client register, it's really important. We talk about client register, not just asset and liabilities, but if you've got PPSR charges, any trade facilities you've entered into, personal guarantees and everything. We like to list all of those down, and include all of that, because it's important that you know that in relation to when you're trying to, especially when you're trying to protect positions and everything, that there's not a personal guarantee on the line in relation to some of the areas. And my big point there, client empathy, and Tim was you're touching on it before, Tim, and you're going through those questions, that empathy piece, and I know Susan Bansgrove spoke about it, the CPEPA course, but it's so important understanding, those underlying needs and feelings of your clients, and what do they want to do? What are their goals in the next 12 months? And, it is all intertwined in between their business. And it's the reason that they are doing what they're doing. At the end of the day, everyone has a goal or a reason for doing something. It's not, it's not about reporting, as you said. So
the empathy is why it's so exciting for us, is that, if you have a look at, compared to where we were maybe 10, 15 years ago, so we're all pretty hard-nosed, numbers. Now you look at that now, definitely with the new generations coming along, etc. A lot more is about the the empathy, does that advisor really get who I am? And you will, if you do the right first meeting, you'll actually see their face light up, because at some point in time you're going to hit that rapport, and they're going to go, oh my God, this is something that I really want. And then you can actually feel the energy shift in that meeting. I did one yesterday, and it's like, okay, well, and once you do that, then they start to get invested, and they pile in there, and they'll say, what if I can do this, or what if I do that, or worried about the sun here, and then you can say, look, what we can do is we can be really nasty, leave them out and all that. And like the one yesterday was sort of like, okay, well, put it in as part of the proposal, and then let's mull it out and see what happens. So go anything from Darth Vader to Luke Skywalker in one meeting.
Yeah, well, I mean, people talk about clients for life, and if you get that and you build that in that meeting, and what you're delivering to them, trust me, you will have a client for life.
Yeah, who they're going to go to? Seriously,
yeah, exactly.
They need you.
I had a great session with Mitch, who's on here today, with one of his clients. He's a lovely guy, but again, most of the meeting was Mitch and I were talking about just simply his family issues rather than what was going on, and I'd say that at the end of the day, and Mitch, you could probably make a comment on the chat line, but it's certainly a completely different sort of meeting, but it took like 45-50 minutes, but out of that there was a palpable relief for him. And I went and saw his HSV car. It was beautiful. So
it's actually Mitch has made a comment on there, said, I'd love to see a whole moat and castle process using ChangeGPS resources for getting clients interested in providing information, cost estimates, engagement, and everything. And we're sort of touching around all of that today, but we might, one of your sessions where you want extended sessions coming up, Grant, we might, we'll actually go through a full case study, and whether it's, and we'll bring that to the table and actually go through into detail all that documentation. I think that'd actually be good for us in actually completing that, and we'll obviously have Tim involved and stuff.
Yeah,
definitely.
So so obviously engagement we talked about before. ChangeGPS, you've got that great engage process program now, part of your app, Tim, and then so your proposal, your engagement, documenting that strategy is really important. I was speaking to a Lightyear member recently, and just last week actually, in relation to, which is what I'm getting to next, is the fees, and I'll take comments from you, Tim, and obviously Grant, and how you break that down. But they were talking about whether they do it as one package, or maybe $25,000 might be too much, and whether they do it in a staged process in relation to the rollout and break it down into, we're going to do this step first, this step second, this step third. What are your thoughts on how you actually do that?
Now, it depends on the client. You've got to be adaptable, but you've got to have, a base minimum that you're going to charge. So our minimum is for a protector is 5 plus GST plus disbursements per property or per business or something like that. So it depends also on the scale. Sometimes there's going to be a bit extra work done. If you've got to do a valuation, if a business is involved, that's another 3 and 5, between 3 and 5 for the valuation. So a whole lot of things like that to consider. And then with the estate planning, I do actually like to break it down to say, look, the rules and powers of attorney will be this, and this is this, and then this is this. Because if you say to a client 25, sometimes they think you're having a bit of a lend to them. Whereas when you break it down, and that's why we've done it, we've found it highly successful, because the cost might come up to 25. But if you've broken it down so they see how it's come up to that 25, they might say, look, can we start with this and we'll come back to that? Sure, great. I've got a 14 grand job that I've had no haggling over, and they're ready to come back for, another 11 afterwards. So breaking it down helps a client to understand all the components, not just that. If you've got to upgrade a component again, it's easy because we know, okay, well, we'll charge you 75% of that next time, or an update for the deeds, 350 again, whatever it might be. So I always like breaking the prices down so they can understand it. And then there's no haggling. If the client says, oh, can you give a discount? I say, no, but I don't blame you for asking.
Yeah.
And then you shut up, don't say anything else.
Yeah, and look, I agree. It's too, if you start pitching it at really high level, it's too much. it's like going to a restaurant, and so you don't know what you don't know. So you go in and have your entree, your main, your dessert, and a really nice bottle of wine as well. And if you really like it, you might maybe have a couple of glasses of champagne. So it's the same thing. Just break it down into little sections. So EPOA and estate planning, they fit perfectly together.
Yeah.
The protector is something that sits by and of itself because it's got a lot to explain, because you need to explain each level. Upgrading everything from the SMSFs and the discretionary trusts, etc., to leading member trusts. That's another function itself as that family protection trust. So when you look at that, and then if you start going the next level and you're looking at family allowances and SMSF wills, etc., that's another one. So there's a good 4-stage project that you charge each level for, and just work out which one's the best for your clients. To facilitate. Now, mind you, if you're using the Moat and Castle, you can do it all in one line, but what you do is you send it out to the client in piece by piece.
It's important to tell your clients everything you can do, because I've had a few not want to do the protector initially. I just get the rules done, and then as soon as it's done, they go, I've been thinking, I want to protect the house. So I always say to clients, and it's not a hard sell. If I'm talking to Mike, so Mike, absolutely no pressure whatsoever. Just letting you know these are things you can do. You choose what you like to do. What's important to you? How much you want to protect? I'm just here to tell you what you can do. And clients like that. So just make it. And that's why I love doing this. It's a zero pressure environment. You're here to help everyone. Like my father, he was the chief pharmacist at the Royal Women's Hospital for 25 years until he died of cancer at age 54. And he was helping people. He was helping pregnant women with drugs and pregnancies. He wrote the book. There's actually a book on it, and he wrote it in Australia, all that. And I learned a lot from him. And I couldn't do anything like he does in the medical point of view, but from a financial and personal and business point of view, we're helping people to make great decisions so they can have a better life. So that's what this is all about. Get passionate about it, everyone. It's so rewarding. Tell your clients everything you can do. Saying, you let me know which are the most important things to do. A third of the clients will say, do everything. A third will say, let's just do the wills and we'll come back to the others. And the third will say, I want to choose this and this and this. Fantastic. We'll do that. Then we'll come back around and see where you're heading after that. And each of those jobs, starts from 2 or 3 grand up. How many tax returns do you have to do for that?
It's amazing what you said, how they do come back after they think it, they go and sleep on it, think about it. And
the important thing is, it's like anything, is to show them all the stuff you can do, because no one else can do all that. So you're going to have to go to a lawyer who specialises in estate planning, and then you're going to have to find someone who does asset protection, someone else who does this and that. So it's very difficult. So by putting the whole thing in there, and really the thing I've learned over time is the 3 most important things for most of our clients is security of wealth and income. It's their family, and it's also their health. So by putting that worm in there and saying, look, if you do all this, then you're going to be protecting your family wealth and obviously income for yourself and your family. The second one is your family's going to be in a really good position. They're all going to know exactly what's going on. You've got a well laid down plan going on into the future. And finally, that means there's a lot of calmness in the family. Everyone knows what they're doing. Whereas if you don't do it all, then potentially next week you might get litigated, which then means that suddenly your security of income is out the door because it's going to cost you $40,000 or $50,000 in legal fees. What will happen there is the family will get extremely worried, particularly your spouse, etc. And finally, your health is going to go out the door because you're going to be so stressed about all of these issues. So you need to show them the 2 levels there. And it doesn't matter whether they pick it up or not. It's getting that worm in their brain so that they know that in the long run, all of the stuff is right on point.
There is never, in my opinion, everyone knows that I was one of the first people really pushing zero back in 2010, 2011. That was a game changer. I really believe the advice that we're talking about here today is the next big thing. This is the next big game changer. It's not going to be software. It's going back to, and software is great. What we're putting together, what Grant's building, it's just, we're proud of it. We're really excited about it, but it's not the software. We're talking about going old school, helping people understand concepts, developing a strategy to make this happen, and then to be able to revisit this every 12 months and to keep them on track when family events happen. And this is totally the next big thing, is this brings in succession planning, business valuations, whole range of things, which is just beyond tax returns and BASs. And I would think some of the accountants here, at the end of the day, might just get a separate small team to do the tax returns and BASs, and the major firepower is going to be focusing just on this. Because I know that's what we're doing.
Yeah, 100% agree, Tim. It's with that. So obviously next important point, and like your docs comes into here, or document legal providers, but is the documentation. And with Tim, you showed before data capture. Obviously, like you've got data capture forms. We'll be working on which with the new iteration of Light Year Docs 2.0. There'll be data capture forms that we sent out from there, and we'll work with Tim in relation to that. I know my team have been building a lot of 0365 forms as well in relation to client capturing client data, which we find fantastic. So when do you capture that data? When do you capture it, Tim, in relation to completing it? Because obviously you're not completing the Light Year Docs interviews while you're sitting with the clients, but
so what I do is, look, clients never normally know how to fill it all out anyway, but it needs to be a client instructed process. That's very important. So you're not seen to be giving the advice, and you're not, but you're asking the key questions. So what I do is I send out that data capture form. I've got their name on it and, the date of it. And I send to them and say, look, have a go at filling this out. If you can't fill it out, doesn't matter. We'll book in a time and we'll finish it. Now, half the clients fill it out and send it back, but we still call them, have a video meeting using Teams. Other clients don't know, so we'll book in half-hour video meeting. So this all, you've got to build this into your cost. Now, we don't give a quote until we get this data capture form back, because I don't know what's involved. I've got a client that he's got a business, and probably business and personal wealth about 50 mil. He wants to leave his money to 29 beneficiaries, different amounts. He's got different assets, and he's divorced. So that's why I'm working with Grant Grant's working on putting together some sub-trusts and family protection trusts and things like that, so we can get money going in the right directions. But if I gave him a quote for a $3,000 will, and he's got 29 different beneficiaries, no way. So it's going to be like starting at $3, then $500 per beneficiary on that, plus. So you've got to get the information first. So send it out, call them, and we'll just go through it. And sometimes they don't know the difference between successor and executor. You can explain that. That's fact. That is not legal advice. Okay. So you guide them through, and a lot of times they don't know who to make as guardian for their kids. They don't know who the tertiary successor should be or beneficiaries. So you're talking through them, and then you've got that document that says, I'll come back, I'll give you a quote for it all. And, generally for most packages with everything, you don't want to be doing anything for less than $5,000. You don't want to be doing cheap stuff, because this is high quality. And people might say, look, my clients can't afford that. Seriously, my poorest clients can't afford that. We've also got quick fee. They can pay it off over 12 months. This is high value work. Don't reduce it in your minds. Every client, they might have $200,000 equity in their property, but they've got $500,000 worth of life cover. If mum and dad each got $500,000 and the equity in the property, that's $1.2 million that you're now protecting and funneling to their bloodline. So it's valuable advice, everyone.
Yes, it is extremely valuable, and you've got to price accordingly. And then obviously you prepare the documents, you review it for completeness and against strategy. It's interesting. We're talking about sharing in our community. Michael Semu, I don't know if he's listening, but we're having a discussion this morning. He's just rolling out his first protectors with clients, and I actually shared with him a day or so ago one of our proposals that we'd sent out to clients, and sent the information in there, and so you could see the what we put in and the detail and the process and everything. And we've been talking about the process, and I was talking to him also about the mortgage registration process, and he wanted to get the pricing right in relation to disbursements. And I said, look, once you get to that review documentation completeness and against strategy, and ready to prepare the documentation, which we're going to build into our process with Lightyear Docs 2.0, but we're improving the event of EO processes all the time. But I said, send it through to me, and I'll get the draft NMC forms done up and the PPSRs ready, so that you can get, when you meet with the client again, you can sign it all in one process, rather than at the moment us getting it and then we're creating some more forms and going, okay, Tim, these forms need to be signed now, and the client has signed all on this. Let's get, work together and make the process a lot more efficient and streamlined, and present a lot better to the client as well. The client starts getting a bit anxious. I've signed these docs now, I've got to get signed more, and here's some more, and all that sort of stuff. So, but that's all working together as well. But and then you obviously present it, and and present that pack, and it's a valuable package. You want to present it in the right way. And I know Tim, we talked about what you showed us at the Pepper course and everything. So.
Absolutely. I think from my perspective, a good hack that I use is, again, it's more about efficiency. And we tend to, if we do things in stages, our brain has to get back to the original stage we were in the last time. So there's always a learning. What I like to do is go through and obviously have the general meeting with the client, which you guys talk about. You send the proposal, and then they may even only do a bit or whatever, but what we do is we go in and we start to build the moat. So what I've done in the past, which I found excellent, and I think it's really good from instead of sending a data capture out to the clients, is when you go through the moat is to find out obviously all the common parties, their children, their grandchildren. You already know their trustee companies, their bucket companies, etc. And then I then just go through and ask them the questions. So who's going to be your attorney? Who's your second attorney? Who's your third? Because then all we have to do is just go through the moat and just click. Now we're going to go on to we're going to go and look at your discretionary trust and upgrade it. So who's the first leading member? Who's the second? Who's the third? Then you can go to the SMSF, and then, if we have an SMSF will or a pension, you can actually go through and just simply ask the questions. And likewise, when you do the will and testamentary trust, so who's the executor, who's the next, who's the one after that? Do you want a testamentary trust, or do you want to have a specified beneficiaries? So through that exercise, and then you can do it with the Zoom, like you just have you don't share your screen, but you just ask the questions that are basically sitting up on that one interview form. And I find that, because then I get all the stuff down. Now, I might only use, as I said before, the EPOA and the wills and testamentary trusts. But then when I come back and I want to do the leading member, I've got it there. If I want to go back and do the family allowance, I've already done it all. So it's all there. It's just now the rollout, how we do it, and which leads on to the next section, which is obviously execution.
Yeah, so execution. I mean, it's probably a little bit harder now in office, but obviously client meeting to execute, and whether you send them out and you hold a Zoom or you hold that in office, I guess it depends on the circumstances where the client's based and et cetera. And obviously, if you are sending it out, obviously clear instructions, you're going to have that Zoom and go through, but any clear instructions around the witnessing, and then also considering any other potential additional documents, which we were talking about then, for the protection mechanisms, which I've got. EO can assist with that, whether it's a first or second mortgage, and a PPSR. And as I think Ash sent out an email last night, EO is also able to do stamping of trust deeds as well. Now, I think she said the price was $220 plus obviously the duty on top of that, which is fantastic as well. So, and just the considerations around all of that too. So, first mortgages are obviously a bit more streamlined and easier than the second. The second is, when I say it's easier, the second, the only additional thing where you have to rely on is whether or not you have to get consent from the first mortgagee, and then we arrange that process through EO in relation to doing that. And then if they want a deed of consent and stuff, it just requires a little bit extra time and an additional step, but to work through that.
And I think one of the elements there that sort of goes unknown is, I mean, how many of us have had problems with stamping in the past? It's just like, it's such a painful process. But with this one, I know I've had a look at it. All you have to do is just send the executed deed to the Event of Optimum guys, and they'll organise all the stamping for you. So if you're concerned about a specific document, that whether it needs to be stamped or not, just contact them and they'll tell you, and then you're off and running. So it makes a huge difference for us as professionals, because it's one of those smelly things that you know you have to do, but it's just like, how do I go about doing it? Anyway, so I think that's a great, because it's over all of Australia, isn't it, Michael? All jurisdictions.
I believe so. It's definitely Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria. Ash has been working through that and getting that process streamlined. I know she's lodged a handful of them now successfully, and she's been going through and doing that and actually improving a lot of the helping EO processes, which have been fantastic. She's a great resource for Lightyear, and she's just been doing a little bit of work helping us on that as well, which is great to have someone who's quite, as you are aware, Grant, she's very process and project based. And
I've got a couple of questions here. One from good old Gnomes up in Port Lincoln. She says, do we need to subscribe to Event of Optimum or just start sending things to them?
Just send through. So it's not a subscription. You just need to, you send it through to registrations@eventumoptimum.com.au, and I'm sure one of our team will put this up on chat in a sec in relation to the contact.
And then you've got John Gowing. Good to see you, John. Has EO streamlined the process of obtaining first mortgagee consent?
Yes, we have. Yeah, we do that ourselves in relation to getting that consent.
Perfect.
Yeah, and generally, as you'd expect, they all charge, especially the four majors, charge a fee for providing that consent. So we prepare a form. It's got to be completed. Client has to sign it, and effectively they direct debit. Generally, the fee is about $165 to $200 they charge to provide that, and provide that deed of priority as well. So the banks don't miss you, as we're all well.
Exactly.
Gary also mentioned just before in relation to capital raise for Lightyear Docs 2.0. It is closing right now, and I am issuing certificates. But if there is anyone who is interested, just let me know. So he's going to send through an email. So that michael@lightyeardocs.com.au.
Michael, you got those two put aside for those
I
people
have.
emailed? Fantastic, mate.
Yep.
Yeah, I just saw, can you believe it, while we're doing this, Michael Samu is multitasking and doing his assessment for SAPEPA at the same time. So good on you, Michael, and I'll be waiting to see what the results are.
That's like double CPD, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, well, it is actually. It is double. So
yeah, so that registration protection, which I went through there, just noting there, we some states do, not Queensland, but Victoria and New South Wales, depending on where how the title was originally completed, they are still in some locations in New South Wales and Victoria, they are still under paper titles, regardless of us using PEXA. So we still do everything online, but we have had a couple of properties recently where we have had to have the.
Are you there, guys?
I think he's frozen. That's okay. So, so with the registration protection, I think that's absolutely.
You've got in your Protector asset protection system some examples of journal entries. I don't know if you've got that and you want to bring it up or.
Yes. So if let me share a screen, I can go back to that.
Yep. I'll stop sharing.
If I can just find where it is, and I'll go back to it. On the Protector. Yep. So I'm just going to go back and share my screen here. Now I'm going to go into ChangeGPS. Under Asset Protection Estate Planning at the top here, we'll go into the Protector. So here's System, the Protector. So we've got all the letters of advice and also the letters enclosing the documents to sign, enclosing copies after they've been signed. So here's the system. I'm not going to go through it all, but we've got the content here. And someone asked about flyers. We don't have flyers on this. I'd rather talk to the clients than give advice and charge them. So there's the journal entries. For example, when you gift equity to a trust, you debit promissory note receivable for the amount, credit equity gifts to trust. Then when you register the second mortgage, you remove the promissory note receivable, which is like cash effectively, and then debit a loan to the individual and it's secured. So they're the entries you'd put in a family protection trust. You don't need a tax return for that trust because it shouldn't be doing any other taxable activities. And as we spoke about in the SPEP course, while you could charge interest on that protector, there's two ways of dealing with it. If you do it on a cash basis, effectively you don't have to record the interest as taxable until it's received, or you could put 0% in interest, but you could have the ability to charge it at the end if it was so chosen. So there are a few different, my approach would be to try to not charge interest, because otherwise, you know, you're putting in different amounts on, and you don't want the ATO trying to come along and say, look, that was a taxable event. Yeah, choice is yours. So all this content we've got there in ChangeGPS, making it easy for you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I don't know. I sent you guys just spitballing here, but sent you guys a private binding ruling that one of our advisors sent through, which is fantastic. You can change a discretionary trust to a unit or a hybrid trust, and Commissioner's got a guideline basically saying it's not a resettlement. So,
oh really?
Yeah. So I just think it might be a way, particularly for the guys in New South Wales who've got land tax issues, and also if you've got in the private binding ruling they did. The unit holding ended up being the UPE, so which wasn't too bad, because if you do that, then you can actually secure or do PPSR over those units, as opposed to what you don't have as a discretionary trust. So,
well,
again,
you can eliminate some Div 7A probs, hey?
I know. So when I saw it, and I thought, because I must admit, it's one of our guys very smart, and it's like, well, look, I'm not sure, because I it's suddenly turning from one thing to something completely different. But then he showed me the private binding ruling, which I sent on to you guys. And as soon as I read it, it's like, I just know it's going to take a while for it to sink into me to see what the potential uses are. So again, so these things are, like, some of the innovation we're doing is just absolutely amazing.
Because we had that question actually come through this week, didn't we, Grant, in relation to...
Yeah, I know.
I was exact, because Geraldine sent it through to me, and I was the same as you. I said, I don't know about that. I go, I think you're changing the substance of the entity, and then you got potential resettlement issues that you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, the Commissioner came out and said, no, not at all. In fact, there's one CGT event, I think E5, that potentially could happen where an asset is transferred to the beneficiary of discretionary trust. But it's funny, because then he goes on and says, well, yeah, if you actually own units, then that CGT event won't happen, because it only applies to discretionary trust. So I've got to reread it and get my head around it, because, you know, I can smell a lot of good little strategy sitting in there.
And the other thing I've got is valuations and how you do them. I mean, EO can provide, we've got a price list in relation to valuations. I know Tim uses different services valuations as well. I mean, we utilise our package that we have in relation to where we do the mortgages and the PPSR, so we can do desktop property valuations. We've also got a service where if someone wants outside of a desktop, so we can actually do full property assessments. We can also do business valuations, and depending on what type of business valuation, there's obviously different pricing levels, you know, depending if it's a divorce or a business sale, or simply that you're valuing it to come in, because it all depends, doesn't it, Tim, in relation to the actual purpose and what you're doing. And so I don't think this needs to be a war and peace exercise. I mean, motor vehicles, red book valuation is fine. Things like that. So in terms of what equity,
you said a simple one for this process. Yeah, it's not for family law court. It's not for litigation in court. So I'll do. You know, we've got like a one page. We've got some very basic stuff that you can use in GPS to just do a basic, you know, evaluation of a business. Like we use B-Star. So if we've got any size business, we'll probably charge $1,500 to do a very brief, you know, business valuation, which is sufficient to put on the file. We've got core logic, RP data, so we can do property vals ourselves. So I want to do that to see what's going on. And we just charge that to our clients. Now, if a client doesn't want to do that, well, we can't do the job for them. But every client, I just build that in. Okay, if it's a business, we need to do the val. It doesn't need to be a full level one. And you know, if you need help with doing these with your clients, talk to Mike or yourself. We'll be out. We've had a lot of GPS members outsource vals to us because they've needed high level ones done. And we've like for say the accountant isn't one of their friends is a client, they want someone external to do it. So we've done a val for $5,000, for a trading business multiple times. And that's just helped them through. And Michael, you'd be doing the same. So we're all here to help. If you've got any questions about this, talk to us.
And I think
we do, and we obviously we do that internal sort of.
Yeah, so there's a question there from Simon about
and it depends, as I said before, depending if it's a fair and it's divorce or something, we have a panel of valuers that we use via EO as well. So depends, whether I'm going to have to stand in court and in relation to the valuation, who we actually utilise and what we actually do. So.
Just one, I've got a question here from Simon. It talks about the call options in the FPT. They're a really fundamental part of the whole process. And with those call options, they're obviously an asset that's acquired in by the trustee of the FPT. It's important though to get a valuation at least every year of whatever the assets are, so that you can see the underlying increasing value of the call option. So the more that we go down and show the bona fides of this transaction, the stronger it's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And then there's different ways of valuing call options as well too. So, review process, client review. I mean, we went through that before. What you've got, Tim, and I think it's absolutely fantastic, especially with those questions you run through. Like, I mean, I sat on your webinar in relation to your work paper system, and then that, like, I was salivating in relation to that process, in relation to the package that comes. I really was. I was so excited. These are the things that really do excite me, because I'm like, the potential that can come out of that is just fantastic. And that's the exciting. It's all good and well sitting down and talking about the tax numbers and the financials, but it's that value add and an exciting part of what I think we're doing. That
mate, I'm glad you're excited, because look, I am too. And we're accountants. We that sort of stuff, excites us. So look, that's just this part of what it is. I'm glad you loved it, but I'm always looking ahead. I'm just loving using that stuff that you can use work papers in the year and catch up with the clients, just as a launching pad to light year and beyond. Hey, Grant.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what it's all about. To infinity and beyond, huh?
And I think there's a couple of Q&A questions and answers. Any screenshot of the journal entries, please?
I think where we're going to. I mean, the whole the one I do.
The business. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember going back years ago with we had a conference. And look, I've been a great fan of many times. Michael Gerber. If you haven't read the E-Myth, it's legendary. But it talks about a lot of us being accountants or lawyers or whatever. We tend to go and set up an advice business because we really like giving advice, but we don't set up a business. So we're really just technical people who have things that are wrapped around us. So that's why we're always makes it a lot more difficult. Obviously, we then get our first staff member and they take a bit of the load, but then, our passion goes down a little bit further. So, but the big thing out of that is obviously you need to have a process and a system. And what Michael and Tim and all of the tools that we've got and continually bring to bear provide a system that you don't need to go and reinvent the wheel. Which is the absolute crucial. So like Xero had its system and it's still continuing to build. But again, that's just specific down to accounting. Whereas the system that we're building is that, going back to what Michael's saying, it's that empathy system that we're creating solutions for clients that have a material impact on their stress, their mental health, their family mental health.
Yeah.
And you can tell if you've done it right, there's a huge weight off their shoulders.
Yeah. Just a question for Mitch about business valuations. This is a key thing. I'm not worried one little bit about being sued. Why is that? We're doing asset protection and estate planning. We need an approximate value. This is it's like when you do tax planning. Tax planning is not a tax return. Tax planning is an estimate right now, and then the value of that is in helping clients to make choices about things before year end. It's not the final tax return that the ATO audits you on. with the business valuation, it's not like a valuation to sell a business to realise a final amount. The business will be sold at some point in the time in the future. Your valuation now has no bearing on that. This is just to give an approximation so you can gift something across in the Family Protection Trust. Now, who's going to sue you on that? Your client's not going to sue you. Who else is going to sue you? What, someone that's attacking your client? You've got no business relationship back to them. You see, so I've got zero worry about that. Michael, do you feel the same?
Yeah, I do, 100%. And I mean, it gets back to what I was saying before in relation to the purpose of the valuation. But the purpose of this value, I'm not concerned at all about being sued on these family protection or anything. I'm not really concerned in relation to even when we need to use the external values, as long as we understand the purpose and we get the information correct and we understand what process we've got to deliver that through to them. But certainly I understand what Mitch is saying. There are a number of valuers who are running scared, and but we just don't deal with them.
Yeah, so it's a different purpose though. You know, it's
Look, from a legal perspective, I mean, there's obviously, and I find this, and the question pops up all the time, and you can see it when you're going out and explaining what you're going to do. You know, you're going to transfer the equity of the assets all over that, and you can see in their mind the things they're worried about is capital gains tax and stamp duties and all that. So you just let them fester for a while. And I always just then sit back and wait. And I said, oh, by the way, the whole structure we're doing, there's no capital gains tax or stamp duties. As soon as that happens, bang, you know, it's just like it's open up, which then means that by its very nature is, you know, when do we legally need to do valuations? Obviously from a tax or a super perspective, but when it's a gift, because there's no such thing as a gift tax in Australia, then effectively it's not an issue. There's nothing passing. So we do need, though, from a perspective of the accountant, that when we do those transfers over of the gift, it's the solvency certificate. So you can't, for example, have a $500,000 shares and then pass it over for $1 million, because obviously that the gift would mean it's not solvent there for you.
Yeah. And just to follow up on Mitch's comment as well, Mitch says in the Q&A, the registered valuers say their valuations are later used in divorce cases and the value is ripped to pieces. The key with this is the purpose of the valuation. So in the report, you say this valuation has been prepared to facilitate estate planning and asset protection right now, blah, blah, blah. So you put the reason. And we always, in our engagement documents, use a line along the lines of, our advice can only be used now for the purpose that it's given. In other words, you can't come down in 2 years later and then have someone else saying, hey, look, family law court, if there's divorce, that valuation, things are wrong back then. No, that was not the purpose of it back then. The purpose of it was to protect family equity back then. So I don't see any issues with that. Again, there's a lot of, it's a bit like the whole estate planning sort of things. There's a lot of stuff that's said out there in the industry, which very, very, very rarely happens. In most cases, it doesn't happen. So it's all old wives' tales. So, when you do this with the proper disclaimer and the proper purpose of the valuation, it cannot be turned around and used against you.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And if there's no more questions from the floor, which has been great, the interaction's been fantastic today, and I'll always enjoy my sessions with Tim and Grant. So thanks for joining me today, and I'm sure we'll flesh out more of these issues going forward. But I hope everyone took a lot from that today. So thanks, Tim. Thanks, Grant. We'll wrap it up, and we'll see you next time.